What is good, people? Welcome back to the 14th episode of the Devy Watch podcast. We are focused on the developmental side of dynasty football, college football talk, evaluations, information, anything we can bring to the table, we're going to bring in. I am your host, Lawrence Cheney. You can follow me on Twitter at Pacific Scouting. With me are my two main ride or dies, and I'm going to start it off a little bit different this week. Cody Garrett. You can follow him at _ Cody Garrett. I was starting to feel bad because every single week I would mention Jason first. So
Cody deserves it.
Cody deserves it.
It's all good. He does deserve it. It's his time.
Yeah, you can also follow Jason DiRienzo at All Purpose Yardage on Twitter. We got a fantastic show lined up for you today. We're gonna kick it off with some BS about last week's performances. So, Cody, since I mentioned you first, let's get some of your favorite performances from this past week. Oh shit! What happened to Cody?
Is it absurd? Can you guys hear me?
Now.
We can now.
Okay. So I'm going to start it off with Stanford running back Bryce Love. 263 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. An absurd number right there. It kind of got overshadowed this weekend, but he dominated UCLA. This is a guy for me personally. I wasn't too high on him coming into the season. For whatever reason, I didn't think it was going to be all that great, but he has put up over 150 yards rushing in every game this year. That's 4 straight games. Dude is a beast, and he looks good too. So, that was missed by me. But he looked great this weekend. He's looked great all season. This is a guy who everybody needs to have on their radars, especially for 2018. He could sneak up there and be one of those top backs. And then the second guy, same game, Caleb Wilson, play 11 receptions, 145 yards receiving. And this is the second time he's put up just a giant number out of the tight end position. And that's not something you usually see all the time from, especially these college tight ends. But he's starting to make a name for himself. He's becoming number one guy. And rightfully so. I mean, the dude looks impressive. He looks like he's got everything you want out of an NFL tight end as well. So he's another guy who I think is going to start climbing the charts if he already hasn't by now. But 2 solid performances out of the same game, and that's what I got. That's what impressed me this weekend.
Yeah, and I want to take it too hard, missing on Bryce Love. At one point, I had Bryce Love, I want to say, like 29th overall in our Devy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I did too.
And then, that was just because the athleticism, the burst, all that stuff that he showed it last year in his limited play. But I ended up, digging a little bit deeper and just watching him, how he runs, his style, what he does at pass pro, and it wasn't doing it for me. And I dropped him down, you know what I mean? And he's proven me wrong up to this point because he is running with power. I know he was breaking a lot of tackles in that USC game, and he was impressive there. So, I mean, it is what it is. He's a riser. It happens. We like him. We don't like him. Next thing you know, they show up and they burst on the scene. So,
yeah, no
love lost.
I see what you did there.
There you go.
Yeah, but Caleb Wilson's a stud too. But my performances, I think this one was overlooked a little bit because this kid plays for Kansas. And this is a sophomore running back, Khalil Herbert. And, he had 36 carries, 291 yards, and 2 touchdowns against West Virginia. And I went back and I tried to watch as much as I could, the footage that I did see from it. And, one of his touchdown runs, man, he was looked like a stretch to the right. I just watched it one time. And he ended up, following his blockers and sort of being patient, had his hands on back of his right tackle. And then he just seen a hole, a cutback lane, and he just, bursted to it, went through it, ran away from the guy to the opposite end of the field for a touchdown. And, so he has that vision. And I continued to see the vision in the game because he had another run like that. But then, the Kansas O-line was getting some push. So, but I think that's a notable performance for one underrated, overlooked running back that wasn't on my radar until this past week. And because he's a Kansas Jayhawk, it's the only team.
Is that why you're rocking the jersey or what?
Yes. That is. It's the only team outside of Washington that I root for. But another one is Indiana freshman running back Morgan Ellison, and I really like this kid. Coming in, we did a underrated piece, I think, for our Devy Roundtable back in June, and I highlighted Deion Jackson for Duke. Morgan Ellison's a similar player to that, but he's got the workload, he's got the opportunity. That run game is starting to pick up, and he's listed at 6'1", 225. He had 25 carries, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a guy that he does it with power. He does it, he does have some sudden movements to him. He's I wouldn't consider him stiff, but he's not going to be, a guy that's super fluid, but he has enough, I guess you could say twitch to him. He's got that power. So, I was hyped on that performance. I think it's like, when's it going to end with these freshman running backs, and our freshmen in general, but running backs especially, because they just keep popping up week after week. And final performance is one of my guys that I've been really high on for a long time. That's Boise State wide receiver Cedric Wilson. Man, he popped off. He's listed at 6'3", 190. I think he's a little heavier than that. There's times where when I get a nice a look at Cedric Wilson where I can see that he's sort of more filled out than what his listing would recommend or would suggest. And, he went off, man. 13 receptions, 209 yards, and a touchdown. And he does it a lot of ways, man. He can beat you downfield. He's got good sudden movements and deception to get those DBs to bite, and then he takes off, blows by him. He also does it with some yak, yards after catch, and he's got a 50% dominator rating currently, and that's good for those group of 5 wide receivers. You want to see that. So,
jeez.
Yeah, 50%. I mean, and he's done it. We got Tyler Johnson for Minnesota, who has a 74% dominator rating, but that's such a low volume offense.
Yeah.
Boise State's got the volume, and he's got the 50% dominator rating. And for those of you who don't know what that is, he's accounted for 50% of the receiving offense for that team, which is big time. So those are my 3 performances.
Yeah, imagine if he goes down that 50%, so he's a huge part of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of touched on it, but if he's filled out a little bit more than that 190, I mean, I think that's my biggest worry for him, is that he's too thin. So I'm hoping that he weighs in a little bit more than that.
Well, I just want to throw this out there. We're looking at like a Deion Kane. We always talk about him, 6'1", 190, and Cedric Wilson.
Yeah.
I feel like he's the same type of athlete as Deion Kane. I could be wrong, but he also does more technical stuff with his game as well. So I think he could be a big riser. He could be that player that people thought Thomas Spurbeck was going to be last year. And I think, Cedric Wilson showed up, outplayed him last year, and then now he's really taken to that role as number 1 wide receiver in that offense. So
yeah, I think actually you're right when you said that he's got to be a little bit more than 190, because Deion Kane, man, I think Wilson uses his frame and has better strength than Kane does. So I would say he's more than 192.
Perfecto.
For me, man,
what you got for us, Jay?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this one because I know you guys, and I know LJ, you were kind of on board with him too. But Trey Sermon, freshman running back out of Oklahoma, 6 foot 223, 13 carries, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Man, this kid is just so much fun to watch. He runs with such power. He's angry. He's so angry. Even in his high school film, you could just see it, knocking people down, breaking tackles. I mean, he has a target on the end zone. And he's going to do whatever it takes to get there. He's elusive. He's, I think Pro Football Focus. Did you put that out there, LJ? That he's the most elusive right now?
Well, in the projected futures piece, I was looking at Pro Football Focus College, and he ranks as the most elusive back, or has the highest elusive rating for Big 12. And last week he forced 12 missed tackles on his 12 carries. So,
and
he was good.
I'll mention too that literally all of that, I'm pretty sure came in the fourth quarter. I don't think he had a single carry until the fourth quarter.
They needed him too.
At least the bulk of it did. And they were in a tight game, and they gave him the rock, and he just freaking dominated.
Well, that's also because Abdul Adams was going off, and he needed a break, man. What do you have, like a 90-yard touchdown run or something like that?
Yeah,
99.
Yeah,
99. Yeah, I think it was 99 yards.
I'm pretty sure he was a little tired after that, But yeah, Sermon looked really good. My other guy, and again, we're all high on this kid, Arizona State wide receiver, N'Keal Harry, man, 6'3", 210, 7 receptions, 170 yards, 1 touchdown. Dude, he knows how to use his frame. I think he broke like 2 or 3 tackles, it was like a gang tackle, and he broke right out of it and started taking off. Got excellent yards after the catch. This kid, this is the game I think we're all waiting for to see him just do what he does best. And he looks like a number 1 wide receiver, and it was exciting to see him perform this weekend. And my last guy, Clemson freshman running back. I know I talked about it last week, but I had to do it again. Travis Etienne, man, 5'10", 201, 9 carries, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. This kid has 7 speeds to him. You could almost see him shifting gears as he takes off, and he breaks tackles. He's elusive. I honestly think that this is going to be a guy who's going to be a priority Devy pick in the future, and he looks every bit probably the number 1 back for Clemson. I know we all like Feaster, but this kid's outperforming. He looks great.
Yeah, and how do you pronounce his last name?
Okay, I looked it up a few times. I listened to a couple things. I was saying Etienne last week because that's what I heard the announcer say. I watched a couple of things, and it was Etienne. So, yeah, he made his way onto the projected futures. Last week I was writing that, I wanted to see another solid performance out of him to see if he could make it onto the list, and he definitely did that, man. He's their leading rusher right now, and he looks better than Feaster.
Another freshman, that's crazy.
Yeah, another freshman running back, and there's still guys out there like UAB Spencer Brown, who I'm really fond of. I mean, he's a guy that he sort of runs tall and stuff, but he runs mean. He's got 4.5 speed, and there's, like I said, Deion Jackson earlier. There's just so many other guys that haven't had their opportunities yet.
Yeah.
And once they do see those opportunities, I think this is going to be the craziest class that I've ever seen.
It's not who Najee Harris. Everybody was like super high on. He has barely even gotten any play. Ty Chandler. There's a lot of guys that are still just are waiting.
Yeah, it's this kid's acceleration. I've never seen anything like it. He's
athletic. I mean, 4.4 guy. He had a 37-inch vert. So he definitely has it. And so those are our favorite performances from this past week from some guys that we just wanted to put out there that aren't necessarily the top guys in terms of 2018 talent or in their classes currently, but they're on the rise. I mean, I know N'Keal Harry is. Bryce Love's making his way there, and Cedric Wilson has a great shot as well. So let's get this ball rolling and have Cody drop the Devy Watch info for you guys like he does every single week.
Yes, sir. So you can check us out on Twitter at Devy Watch. Make sure you go and follow us. Our podcast is part of the Dynasty Football Network by way of dynastyfootballfactory.com. And you can listen on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and the DFF YouTube channel as well. So we have a ton of specialized centric shows like the Dynasty Warzone, the Fantasy Football Fellas, the IDP Edge Crushers, and the Super Flexible Podcast. So hit us up with a review and subscribe on all those platforms for us so you can get the show as soon as it drops.
And be on the lookout. I mean, I've said it so many times, their show hasn't even dropped yet. I don't even know if the show is still in the works or not, but it's Dynasty Trades Headquarters, which is our main man Shane over at DFF, our dude Michael Sipes, who is at FF Blitz, and DFF Madman, who is Jeremy, and I don't know his last name. So they're on the way as well. And what we got going on for you guys today, we're going to drop some news. Actually, Cody's going to drop some news since he left us hanging last week, and me and Jason didn't have anything interesting to talk about. So we'll let Cody drop some news. And then for our main segment today, we're going to talk about, we end up ranking, our top 10 for the 2018 class. We grabbed all these names. We did a consensus ranking, and we'll discuss that, break it down. And we're going to bring back the Devy or Vet segment this week. And if we have time, we're going to discuss some upcoming matchups for this coming weekend. Let's hear it, Cody. You got this grand old news that you want to drop on us.
Yeah, I mean, all I got right now is Baylor wide receiver Chris Platt is likely out for the year. He's their speedster wide receiver on the outside. He's a solid player. He's not, their number one guy, but he's a guy who could stretch the field for sure. He's a track guy. I believe he runs on the relay team as well. But they're thinking he's going to be out for the year, which is probably going to be a little bit of a blow to a team that, still hasn't won yet. So they've been struggling, and losing him not going to be good. So that's all I got for this week. Nothing too crazy.
I got a little something. I just
Oh,
I
here
just
we go.
I just saw, so I'm gonna help out a little bit. Auden Tate, guys, looks like he is considered day to day, and
nice.
for us
good.
for us guys who absolutely love Auden Tate, and I think a lot of people do, that's great news.
No, that's definitely great news. That's something before the EP, before we started recording, I was like looking for Auden Tate news, and the only thing I seen on it was the severity wasn't too harsh. You know what I mean? So that's great news that he's day to day. Even if he doesn't go this week, that means there's a strong possibility that coming back. And
could have been a lot worse.
It's not several week injury.
Yeah, I want to see that. And with that being said, we're going to get into our consensus top 10 for the 2018 class. Like I said, we grabbed these names. Each of us ranked them. We ended up grabbing like 28 names or something, just because the opinions vary on players, and we wanted to make sure we had all the names we needed to rank. We ranked them 1 through 28, pulled the consensus top 10, and there's some different rankings from us. We don't all agree completely on the players, but we'll start it off. And I mean, it should be no surprise, Saquon Barkley is the number one dude. And I mean, how you feeling about him currently, Cody?
I mean, he's a stud. I wanted to like Geis better. I thought he was going to be better coming in, but I mean, the way Barkley's looking and playing, you can't deny him being the top guy. He might even be the top player overall in the real NFL draft. I mean, the guy's a stud. He just put up 211 yards rushing, 94 yards receiving. He put up. I mean, that's just an insane number, and he looks good. I mean, the way he's able to just find creases. I was watching the game, and there was multiple times where he bounced it outside and looked like he was going to be ran out of bounds, and then he would tiptoe the sideline and gain an extra 5 or 6 yards, or he broke the first tackle and gained an extra 5 or 6 yards. And it's just this guy. I mean, he finds a way to get the first down or get the big play, and I don't know why, but Iowa was playing letting him just catch the ball just free and giving him 5-6 yards of cushion, and he was making him pay every time. Yeah, I mean, his traits are insane. His power, his vision, his speed, everything. I mean, this guy's looking like probably one of the best running back prospects that we've seen probably since Adrian Peterson. So he's a stud. For me, he was number one. I gotta just throw my hands up on that one.
I hear you. I was right there on the Geis train, thinking there's a good chance that Geis gets involved with the passing game, and we see why these guys have been ranked so closely. But I mean, you got to give it up to Barkley. He's all of ours. We all ranked him as number one, and he's just, I mean, the balance, the suddenness, the elusiveness, everything that goes with his game. He's also able to run between the tackles because of the strength that he does have, and that's something that people were sort of questioning, and his ability to sort of dance a little bit behind the line of scrimmage. But he's just shown, man, he's got it all. I mean, there's nothing that I can really knock him for. He's got the work ethic. He puts up insane numbers in the weight room, on his testing, catches the ball, does everything you want. I mean, the only thing, it's hard to knock him, and I haven't paid too close of attention to his pass pro this year, but I'll get into that here shortly, when I go and really dive in to grade these guys here shortly to sort of get a midseason feel. But he's just, I mean, he's the number one in my book.
Yeah, there's not much I can add except the thing that fascinates me about him is the fact that he has such disciplined eyes and footwork. It's just, he can create his own space so easily, and he catches the ball like a wide receiver. So, I mean, if we're talking fantasy here, I mean, good Lord, he's going to be dynamite.
Yeah, I think, and we got a good Devy Watch question for you guys a little later that we're going to lay some wood on it and sort of have a good little discussion. So we'll keep this thing moving though to our top 10. And number 2, our consensus number 2, each of us ranked him number 2, and that's Darius Geis. I mean, I know personally I still believe in him. He's it sounds like he actually might be out again. He's listed as questionable by Orgeron this week as well. So, and I don't even think, he just has not seen the opportunities necessarily to really showcase himself in the run game, or not in the run game, but in the passing game this year. And it's a situation where his backup currently is almost looking just as good as him, and that's technically on paper, but as a runner as well. And it's just, I know the ferociousness, the tenacity that Geis runs with, that's going to benefit him in terms of, being a tough, hard-nosed football player, hardcore running back. And, I love his skill set. I just wanted to see in all aspects of the game and not just with his superior running style.
I almost feel like that's like the LSU thing, is that they use their backup as a receiver, because last year I feel like we were literally saying the same thing about Fournette, is that he wasn't catching the ball much out of the backfield, and Geis was the guy catching the ball out of the backfield, and that's why everybody was so high on Geis and things that you are looking for as well. I almost feel like they save their number one guy for running, and then they use their number two guy for everything else. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm no longer concerned about the pass catching in college per se, because we know that if they're asked to, they can do it. I mean, Fournette's getting 5 targets a game. He's being used in the pass game. If these guys are able to catch the ball, which I know Geis is, I'm really not concerned about that part. He doesn't. I think he's hurt, man. I think there's something wrong with him. He doesn't look the same. When DJ Chark has a better stat line than Geis against Syracuse, there's a problem there, and we know Geis is better than that. So for me, I feel like he just needs to get healthy, because there's something going on there. He doesn't seem the same.
And we're looking, like you mentioned, catching the ball in the backfield. I mean, there's question marks coming into this season about Ronald Jones, Myles Gaskin, because their production would say otherwise. But
I know Gaskin can catch the ball. I'm not even concerned about it.
Yeah, but them as athletes, them as football players, they've shown the ability to actually be pretty natural when it comes to catching the ball. It just sometimes the offenses that they're working in, they're not targeting that running back in the passing game,
and that's not their fault.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And number 3 on this list, who I had ranked a little bit differently to you guys, or compared to you guys. You guys have him as, both of you have him as number 3, I have him as number 5, but the consensus ranking on him is going to be number 3 overall, and that's Cortland Sutton, the SMU wide receiver. And I mean, what's going on, Jason? What's the problem with Cortland Sutton this year? I mean, the talent is there.
The talent is there.
I'm not going to question it.
I think it's just a usage. I think a lot of teams are just putting extra attention on him, and he can. And I think it's the quarterback having the confidence to actually get him the ball from where he is on the field. So we saw him have a 4-touchdown game. I know he has the frame, the tenacity, the competitive toughness. He can climb the ladder and get the ball. I know he can do it all. So for me, it's just the offense he's in. I don't think his quarterback has the confidence. You should have the confidence throwing to a guy like Cortland Sutton. But I think it's just the way it's going for that team. From what I've seen, I mean, he's releasing from press when he's being pressed. He's using his body very well. That 4-touchdown game was really impressive. I still think it's all there. I just think it's game script and the quarterback play.
Yeah, I agree. When I was watching the TCU game, he was being either doubled or shadowed by a safety or something like that. And even I saw a few times where he would get separation from the corner and have a little bit of space, and like you said, the quarterback threw it out of the back of the end zone, didn't even give him a shot. And he probably would have, if you even give him a shot, he catches the ball and he scores a touchdown, because the safety wasn't close enough and he had burned the DB. And it was just like, man, you gotta, like you said, you gotta throw it up to him. He's proven over the last year that he'll catch anything. So I think it's a little bit what you said, just maybe having a little bit more trust in him. And, the QB is just finding other guys, which you can't really knock him. If they're going to spend 2 guys trying to cover one, look somewhere else and hit these other guys. Because in that TCU game especially, that's the only game I've really watched of his closely, is that he was hitting other guys. So it's not like, he wasn't being productive.
Yeah, he's doing
40 points
quick throws, man. And it's just, he just wants to get the ball out and get a high. I mean, I'm not saying he wants a good stat line, but if a guy's open, why not throw it to him? You don't have to be looking for Sutton if a guy's open and ready to go. So I think it's just a game script.
And Sutton currently, he leads the team in receiving touchdowns, but he's 3rd in terms of receiving yards. But I mean, Ben Hicks, the quarterback situation, it is not good. And he's just, it's a situation where the concepts, I remember last year, the concepts for that team, it was very simplistic for that offense. And even then, Ben Hicks was only able to complete 55% of his attempts last year. Right now, he's sitting at 48.8%, which is that's atrocious. You know, in a concept that SMU runs, Cortland Sutton, I wanted to see, and it's not his fault. I wanted to see him be able to expand on his route running and stuff like that. But when it's not in the schematics of the offense, then you can't knock a guy for that. But when he is able to show suddenness, you know, on a dig or, you know, on a back and be able to read and be on the same page with the quarterback on a back shoulder throw, that's what you want to see. And he is able to do that. And, you know, so that the production's not going to be there. People might end up getting a steal, or we see a boost going forward and the offense realizes that they need to work through Cortland Sutton. And this will bring us to our number 4 guy who actually had 3. Cody had 6 and Jason had 4, and that's where he sits at, is 4 in our consensus. And that's Auden Tate. And the thing with Auden Tate for me is, I mean, you know, they've only played 2 games this season. And I was worried because, I mean, that first game, you know, DeAndre Francois went down, and I want to say he targeted Auden Tate like 17 times or something like that. And he was just completely forcing the ball to Auden Tate. And it was a good thing in a sense, you know, but at the same time, Alabama keyed in on it. DeAndre Francois went down. Then you got Blackman who steps in, true freshman, gets his first start. And it was impressive. I mean, the way he was able to connect with Auden Tate before he went down. And it was a situation where he targeted Auden Tate 11 times. Auden caught the ball 9 times for 138 yards and a touchdown before, I want to say it was a post route, if I remember correctly, where he hit him downfield. He laid out for the ball, ended up hurting his shoulder. And, I mean, Tate, he's done it in a number of ways for me. Big-time red zone target. They only have 2 games, but he's obviously the leading receiver. He's got a good dominator rating in that offense. And I think he does have underrated athleticism. I think he's able to attack the ball. There was 2 times where I seen him mistime his jump, though, to go in and get the ball. If he can just get that down, he's got enough balance. He's got enough, you know, body control to complete the catches, stay on his feet. He's able to body up DBs and show that physicality. He's got really good, strong hands. And, I mean, his route running as a whole is sort of underrated as well because he has the traits to do it. He has the suddenness, I think, for his size to do it. And, I really love Auden Tate. I mean, this is what I wanted to see from him this last game, and that, you know, I wanted to see him be a dominant force in that offense, and he showed that. And, you know, I'm pretty hyped about that.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm a little bit lower on him as on the overall, but I don't think it's not necessarily because I'm down on him per se. It's just, you know, I like other guys a little bit more, but he's my number 2 wide receiver, and rightfully so for everything you just said. I mean, he finally, you know, he showed why he is one of the top guys, and I think we've been looking for that type of performance from other guys that I don't think we even have on this list, and he's the one who kind of showed out. And that play that he got hurt on, I thought was like one of the most impressive ones, the way he went up and grabbed that ball. I think the DB he wasn't blanketed on him, but he was there, and the safety was coming over top, and he still just went up and snatched the ball out of the air. So I think I think I've said this before, is that he's just a more athletic version of Kelvin Benjamin. You know, he's got the athleticism that we wanted Benjamin to have.
I think he's. I see what you're saying, but I think he's much better than Kelvin Benjamin. I think he has much better awareness. I think he has a better idea. I think as far as routes, I think once he gets to the NFL and you give him a playbook, I think he would actually become a fairly good route runner as well. Not with the elusiveness because of his size, but he does show pretty good elusiveness for what he can do. That was the moment when you saw that catch and then you see him get hurt. It was like, crap, man. But, you know, him being day-to-day, we're only going to see more from him, hopefully. And, you know, with only 11 receptions and 2 touchdowns on the season, he's got a lot more to prove. So I love the kid.
Yeah, and it's a situation where, thankfully, he's not in the same realm as Kelvin Benjamin in terms of age. I think on Tate, you know, I'm looking at it right here. It says he's 20 years old, 7 months. So that's a good sign.
Man, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
That's what's on 247sports.com as I have it pulled up right now. So hopefully that's accurate, because if that is,
let's just go with that, because that's great.
I mean, you know, if that is the case, he's looking at a 21-year-old season as a rookie in the NFL if he does decide to declare after this year. And I think he should. You know, this is a deep class, but there's going to be only so many true X's in this class in any class, and he has immense potential. He's got such a high ceiling,
Yeah.
and I'm really,
especially with that age.
yeah,
That
I'm
it's only
looking
going to allow
forward
him to grow that much more.
And then number 5 on our list is going to be Nick Chubb, Georgia running back. He's a senior this year, came back. Him and Sony Michel ended up coming back for their senior years. And what's your take on him right now, Cody? How are you feeling about Nick Chubb?
He's right back to being the Nick Chubb that we all thought he was going to be. I mean, he doesn't look like a guy who's been injured at all. He's showing everything that you wanted to see. He's got the speed for a guy his size. I can't, like, every time he gets a breakaway run, it blows my mind. Seeing him with his agility is awesome, especially I keep referring back to his size, but a guy his size shouldn't be able to make some of the cuts and find some of the holes that he finds. And, he's a stud. He's going to be a great player at the next level. And I think the only question mark I had for him was his health. And so far, he's proven that he's good to go. And I wouldn't hesitate to draft him high in a Devy or in the NFL draft.
I think with Chubb, the situation, his injury history, I don't know, it didn't shy any teams away from Todd Gurley. There's 2 other running backs, though, Geis, Barkley, in this draft class, to where I think it's a situation where it could push Nick Chubb down to a contender, and if that's the case, watch out. He could end up in a perfect situation. And oh, God, I would hate that so much, dude.
Could you imagine that? Like, they need more.
But he's just a difference maker. I mean, I wouldn't say he's 100% back to what he was, but I would definitely say he's right in that 90% area of what he was before his injury. And the best attribute that can be said about Nick Chubb is his vision. That's what you want to see. I mean, you can have these athletic running backs, and Nick Chubb is sparked up. He's a guy that's been sparked up since high school. He's a freak athlete. Yeah. But when you compare that with his vision and the type of runner he is, the bruiser, with also being able to show that elusiveness and that burst, I mean, vision's key. It's important, and I think he's right at the top of this class in terms of having that vision as a runner. So I mean, I absolutely love Nick Chubb. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the bounce back, and I think he's doing it, and I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, it's almost like he pulls a Matrix move. It's like the game slows down for him, and he can just process and see the holes so vividly. Yeah, you're right with the vision, man. It's special.
And then we'll move on to our number 6 guy, who myself and Cody had him at 7, and Jason had him at 6. And I know this is a guy that we were actually pretty high on coming into this year. He's going to be out possibly for a little while with, what is it, wrist injury, Jason?
Yeah, it's a wrist injury.
So, I mean, but Jalen Smith, and he's a guy, I believe he's listed as 6'4", 220, and he's just a threat, man. He gets down the field. And not only that, I love his tracking ability. Him pairing up with Lamar Jackson, I know a lot of people can look to a situation where they can sort of say that the quarterback is making the player, you know what I mean? But you can also come to a conclusion that a wide receiver is able to make a player, like a Mike Evans, Johnny Manziel scenario, where in this case, I think both Lamar Jackson and Jalen Smith are just studs, and they work well together. Jalen Smith's another guy who could really turn into a true X at the next level. He's got the speed, the athleticism to go along with it. And, I love him as a player, like his size, like his profile, everything about him. And I'm very happy to see the rise that he's made up to this point. So what's your take on Jalen Smith, Cody?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It blows my mind when I watch him play that he is that big, because when he runs down the field, like, he flies down the field. You would think that he's like a 5'10" guy, speedster type guy. But, man, he shoots up the field and he's burning these DBs who he probably shouldn't be burning, but he does it anyways. And like you said, the tracking ability to go along with that is super important at the next level, because it's one thing to be able to, get a step on guys. It's another thing to be able to track the ball over your shoulder or whatever you need to do. And he could do it for sure. So very impressed with him. I think he's going to, like you said, make a huge rise up these boards. And he's the guy who can be a sneaky, top pick next year and really be, a wide receiver 1 for a team.
Yeah, I like him better than Devontae Parker, to be honest. So for me, I love his deceptiveness when it comes to breaking away from coverage and kind of misleading defenders. Yeah, I want to look into his injury history a little bit more. I know he was hurt during the offseason a bit, and now this wrist injury. I mean, wrist is going to happen, but I just want to make sure that this is something that's not been a past problem with him and that he's going to stay on the field. But I absolutely love his game, and I agree with you. I think he's going to be a top pick next year.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, I mean, preseason people weren't necessarily willing to sort of shove him up there in terms of this tier of players. But I mean, I know that a lot of us at DFF were pretty high on him. So, seeing him at number 6, that's perfectly fine with me. And then our number 7 guy is Kalen Ballage, and he's dropped down a little bit. A couple months ago, a lot of people could have put him at number 3 and been perfectly fine with it. I know the production has never been there for him outside of that one big game last year. And it's frustrating because the ceiling for Kalen Ballage is possibly the highest of any running back in terms of his size, speed combo, his athleticism, him being logged at 23 miles per hour with the GPS that they wear at practice, which those things are pretty damn accurate. A lot of colleges are implementing that in their practice sessions just to get a feel for how many miles these players are running in practice, their speeds, their burst scores, all that stuff like that. And I know UW has been doing it for a couple of years now, and they are pretty accurate. And I mean, when it comes to Kalen Ballage, he's close to your home, Cody. So I'll let you sort of give us a rundown what it is maybe that's causing him to fall, and what it is that you see that's sort of not getting you too worried about him if that's the case.
Well, I mean, what's probably getting him to fall is his production. I mean, you kind of touched on it. His production's not there. He's finally starting to get used, which is good in like traditional type of running and not just the Wildcat. But I just as a whole, outside of him and N'Keal Harry, I'm just not a fan of their offense. I don't think that they call very good plays. I don't think that their quarterback is very good, and I think a lot of teams just kind of are daring him to throw the ball. And it's not because he doesn't have anybody to throw it to. It's because I don't know if he's necessarily a very good passer. And so I think that leads to it a little bit. And what doesn't make me worried about him are his traits that you kind of touched on a little bit. I mean, the guy, his athleticism is insane for his size. He's a freak, though. You just talked about his speed. I think when he goes to the combine, people are going to be really shocked about how fast he is, and combo that with how strong he is. I mean, the guy, he could do anything. He could run you over. He could take you to the house. The huge plays. I don't think his traits, I guess, is basically what is keeping me locked in. I think it's too early for me to be worried about the production. I think maybe once we get a little bit further in the season, if it's still not there, then I might have to look a little bit deeper and kind of figure out what's going on and go from there.
During the offseason, there was a bunch of lies at this point saying that they were going to utilize him. It hasn't happened. And yet, you see a guy like Jalen Samuel at NC State who's massively productive because of his versatility. If he's doing that, I have no doubt that Kalen Ballage should be a receiver. He can be a receiver, running back. His versatility should be used. He's that athletic. And why they're not using him that way, I don't understand. He is elusive. He's got good vision. He's got everything. He's got the frame. So I don't really understand what they're doing. And I think now's the time that they need to switch it up and use him more, show what he's able to do.
I mean, I do know one thing. They upset the Oregon Ducks, who I'm not too fond of. So, I was hyped about that. And it's like Todd Graham, it took him 2 weeks to realize that N'Keal Harry is the best wide receiver on the team. And when you got players like that, N'Keal Harry, you got Kalen Ballage, you need to get those guys the ball. You need to, if you have to, force them the damn ball, just because it's more beneficial for your offense as a whole. And it sets you in situations to where, when you have 2 playmakers like that, one in the backfield, one outside, you can do a lot of things. And, I really want to see a pickup in the coming weeks. And we'll move on to our number 8 player on our consensus rankings, and that's Ronald Jones, running back out of USC. He's my 10. He's Cody's 9. He's Jason's 8. He's the consensus 8. And what interests you? What intrigues you with Ronald Jones, Jason?
Actually, it's what he's done to improve. I think he's better at breaking tackles. Now, there's still room to improve with that, but I think he's better than he was last year. A lot of my concerns was that, he couldn't break past defenses. Once he was grabbed, that was it. He was going down. I think he's doing a better job of that. He's better at being elusive to get around the tacklers. His speed, everything is there. I think his vision's a lot better. I think the fact that defenses went into it thinking that they were going to have to worry about Sam Darnold, and that's not necessarily happening. Ronald Jones has kind of taken advantage of that, and having Carr in the backfield with him, they kind of complement each other. I think that's helping too. But what I see from Ronald Jones is I see improvement, and that's what I want to see year to year. So for me, he moved up a bit because of that.
What about you, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been higher on him, I think, than you guys. But I definitely agree with what he said. He's playing with a lot more just intensity when he's running the ball, and he's not shying away from contact. And I think that was his biggest issue, was not necessarily that he goes down easily, but he just wasn't trying to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
So him trying to avoid contact, he'd get tackled a lot easier than now. He's, kind of absorbing the contact and running guys over, breaking tackles easier. And he's just, not shying away from anything. And he's still got the agility and the speed that you want to see out of a guy. He's not quite on the level of these other guys that we've talked about, but he's kind of like that next tier. And he's a guy who I could see being, I know a lot of people don't really like him, but he could be a Lamar Miller type at the next level, maybe a little bit better, obviously. But that's the type of guy I think he could be at the next level. I get that tier of running back, I should say.
Yeah, and I know, Cody has definitely been one of the hires. Just a second. God damn it. All right, but when it comes to Ronald Jones, I know Cody has been one of the higher in terms of where he's had him ranked. I had him pretty high up there at one point, and then I just wasn't. I mean, he dropped extremely low for me at one point, just because the functional strength, I did not see it. The strength as a runner, I did not see it. I know a lot of people would describe him as being this elusive back, and that's something else that I wasn't necessarily seeing from him. And obviously the burst, the speed was there, but he was sitting there, weighing at 190 pounds, 195 pounds. Well, I mean, coming into the season, I think he ended up being listed at 205. He bulked up, still has the burst, still has the top end speed. I know a lot of the big time draft heads are trying to push him into the upper echelon of running backs with Geis and with Barkley, Daniel Jeremiah, I think Dane Bugler as well, a couple others, which, I mean, is perfectly fine. I can understand that. But he has risen for me. He's improved a lot in terms of his ability to break tackles, and that's one of my biggest things. I know not everybody needs to be able to break tackles, but it's something at the next level that you can't necessarily fully rely on speed. Not everybody's going to be a Jamal Charles, and it's just I like what I've seen up to this point when it comes to Ronald Jones. He's impressed me quite a bit.
Sorry, next one.
Have you talked about it?
Yeah,
Jason?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, shit. All right.
I was the first one.
Okay. So moving on, we're going to be talking about the number 9 overall player. He's a quarterback. He is my number 8, Cody's number 13, and Jason's number 9. Mm-hmm. This is Josh Rosen, and I'll kick it off with Sam Darnold talk, Josh Allen talk. Coming into the season, Sam Darnold hasn't been necessarily the player people thought he was going to be coming into this year. He's still young. His first starts were last year. The interceptions, he's a guy that's sort of got to press the issue and make the plays that he's got to make. I know this team as a whole, they have weapons. Without Sam Darnold, the team wouldn't be what it is, though. But I can't put him in. He can be in the discussion with Josh Rosen, but he's just not in my mind. Josh Rosen's the guy. I mean, he's just so. I feel like he's magical out there on the field. I guess you could say he's a guy that he knows how. I know they just sort of simplified the offense in a sense in terms of giving him certain reads to go through, but even then he's able to go through his progressions. He's a guy that the placement. I mean, there's a difference between accuracy and placement. There's you can throw to a wide receiver, it could be an accurate pass, but when you're able to place it, just outside the outstretched hand of a DB to your wide receiver or to your tight end or whatever it is, he's got that, man. He's a guy that makes some incredible throws. I think he's really got the IQ and the mind. I know he's made some questionable decisions up to this point, but I see him being the number one overall quarterback. I think he's the guy. The character issues in terms of him being a little arrogant and stuff. I mean, you sometimes need that as a quarterback. Look at Aaron Rodgers; he's a piece of shit on the field in terms of his arrogance. I just cannot stand the guy.
I'll say one thing about that too is that he hears it. You have to know that he hears that everybody talks about how bad his offensive line is, how bad his wide receivers are, and I've never heard him, to my knowledge, say anything bad about those guys. Even though if he said, "Yeah, my offensive line didn't block for me," I don't think anybody would say he's wrong. But
no,
his character.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not a guy for quote unquote character issues. The guy still goes out there and he, even with the bad offensive line getting drilled every single play, he still goes out there and makes the right decisions and still, busts his butt. So I can't really. Okay, so he's arrogant. Like, get over it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, those are two arrogant jerk-offs in terms of the world. I mean, people hate them. I love those guys. I love the competitors. I love how they are, and I don't know what it is. I like these cocky players, and Josh Rosen's one of them. He's a tremendous quarterback. I think when all is said and done, when people are able to review everything, unless Lamar Jackson somehow creeps up just because of his ceiling at the position, I think Josh Rosen's going to end up being the number one. So what's your feel on him, Jay?
Oh yeah, man. When you talk about being magical, there's a difference between that. You have your Johnny Football magical where you just run around and make plays and it's crazy. You just get crazy lucky sometimes too. Where he's magical within the pocket, his pocket presence, the way he just kind of see the field so well, go through his progressions, his anticipation, like you said, on his throws is absolutely outstanding. So his magic comes from within the pocket, and in NFL terms, that's valuable.
And when the lights are the brightest, there's just something that clicks. You see
he's competitive, and that's where the cockiness comes from too.
And you just see the focus.
He's not intimidated by anything.
No, he's confident.
He wants that. He wants that light shining on him. He wants to be in a situation where he's down at the end of the game and he's got to drive down and score the game-winning touchdown. just to add to his legacy. And it's just something clicks. The focus level that he puts on the field once that fourth quarter rolls around and he needs to go out for a game-winning drive, he just has it. And I absolutely love that about him. But let's top this thing off with our number 10 player. And this is a surprising one for me because this is a guy I absolutely did not like. I did not want to like last year. I just didn't like him. I mean, I don't know what it was. It was maybe some bias in terms of his offense. Whatever the case was, I didn't want to like him. I felt like he was being overrated athletically because that's how people talked about him, like he was some freak spark god. And I wasn't necessarily seeing that. But this is James Washington. He didn't crack Cody's top 10. He's at 14 for Cody. He was at 6 for me, 10 for Jason. But that's enough to put him at the 10 spot. And what is it with him for you, Cody, that you're not necessarily buying into?
I gotta this year for these year games. I gotta dig in a little bit deeper. But from what I've seen, his route tree isn't where I want it to be for a guy who's going to be a top end wide receiver. He's got the speed. He can track the ball. He does a pretty good job of battling those guys when on those jump balls. But when it comes to his route tree, I'm just not super impressed with it, and I don't think that. I think he can get jammed at the line too easily. So I think at the next level, if he's not able to get off, the bump and run, the press coverage, he's going to struggle because the corners are getting bigger, they're getting stronger, and they have athleticism. So if he's not able to beat that, if he's not able to run run good routes to get separation, I don't think it's going to work in every team. I think if he lands at the right team, he'll be able to be that stretch the field guy. He'll be able to do those types of things, and that might change my mind come seeing where he lands. But right now, I think there's other wide receivers, like Dante Pettis, who's got the speed and he's also able to run the entire route tree at a high level, who I would rather have over James Washington.
Yeah, and that is one thing. He has little to no deception in terms of his route running, and it's something that he does definitely need to work on. He has improved in terms of, beating the press and using his hands at the line of scrimmage, his suddenness, because that's something where last year I would see one little move, a little jab inside, then he'd sort of, get the outside on the DB after you step in one way. But it's something now to where he's actually working a little bit more into his release. He's using his hands, hand fighting at the line of scrimmage, and yeah, his overall ability and ceiling at the position is something I really like, but he has improved in some areas, and he is a guy that he definitely needs to try to work in some route concepts, some deception. He has the suddenness, he has the athleticism. He needs that to go along with it, though, the whole route running concept of the game. He has the hands, he's able to attack the ball, climb the ladder, but you can't always win with athleticism. We've seen it time and time again. The production is there. The athleticism is probably going to be there. He's going to be one of the big-time guys for the analytics crowd because of his production in that offense and what he's done up to this point. But no, I definitely hear you there. And what's your take on him, Jason? He's a guy that I know you and Brad last year were very high on, while me and Cody were sort of battling and butting heads with you two on it.
It's the ceiling for me of what he can be. And I think that's what NFL teams look at. I mean, that's why Will Fuller and Philip Dorsett went in the first round of the draft, and I think James Washington has a higher ceiling because of his frame, his tracking ability, and he has better hands. So, I mean, there's no doubt that NFL teams are going to look at his production, over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in 4 weeks, and say, man, there's something about this kid. He's uber productive, So I see that, so I think I'm looking at the upside. I completely understand what you guys are talking about when it comes to the route running and breaking from press and his release and footwork at the line of scrimmage. He might be a one-trick pony, but that trick's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no.
So I think that he's very similar, and this is what scares me to the guys that you just described. I liked Will Fuller probably a little bit more, but Philip Dorsett, like Rashad or Perryman, these guys I think weren't as good as what they were drafted at, and that's what I don't think I own any shares of any of those guys, but that's what I see with him, and it's like, oh well, do I want that same guy? Because none of those guys have done anything.
A lot of those guys, you got your Kevin Whites and everything. They were productive 1 year, and Rashad Perryman had his problem with drops, just like Will Fuller. I think James Washington is a better prospect than those guys are. I mean, he's got the production, he's got the tracking ability, he's got good concentration awareness. He has it all. The only problem is he's just not asked to do what we want him to do. And I think when he gets to the NFL, he will be asked to do that, and they will teach him how to do that. So that's why I see I see the desire for a prospect like this.
Yeah, and it's a situation where, like you said, the potential, the ceiling, what he could be, that's what guys look for. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to end up being, a first-round pick at the wide receiver position. And depending on what team he lands on, it's going to either be a really great fit or he's going to be a guy that sort of fizzles out after a few years. And it'll be interesting. Once the season continues to go on, I'll know whether or not I'm going to be willing to spend a draft pick on him next year in rookie drafts. And, it's looking promising right now, but we'll see. And that rounds it off. That does it for our consensus top 10. We had Saquon Barkley, Darius Geis, Cortland Sutton, Auden Tate, Nick Chubb, Jalen Smith, Kalen Ballage, Ronald Jones, Josh Rosen, and then James Washington. And we're going to move on to –
Were my rankings the consensus?
What's up?
It looks like my rankings were the consensus, the way I had them ranked out. That's interesting.
Huh. I don't know. That is weird. Maybe it was adjusted or something beforehand. Yeah. I don't know. But, yeah, no. We're going to move on to, a segment that we really like, that we've got feedback from our listeners that they like as well. And that's Devy or Vet. And I got 3 names from both sides. And it's going to be, the thing is with this is the top rookies are typically going towards the back end of the second round in startups, unless you get 2 years ago, Zeke Elliott, who landed in the perfect scenario and he was going in the first round in some startups. That's a special case. And there's situations that come like that once in a while, like a Julio Jones back in the day. And So what I wanted to do is sort of pair up the preseason ADP for overall dynasty and then use the projected futures piece for where these Devy talents, or I guess I could say 2018 talents, are going on that projected futures list. And the first matchup is going to be Sammy Watkins, who was 31 overall in preseason ADP, which I'm sure right now it's raised quite a bit because of what he's done. And we're going to match him up versus Auden Tate, who is the 1.06 on that projected futures list. So I'll throw it over to Cody and get his take on this first. Who are you rolling with here?
So I kind of went back and forth on this one. I like Sammy Watkins quite a bit, liked him coming out. His health is the only concern that I've really ever had of his. I really like Auden Tate. We just kind of got done talking about him, but I'm going to stick with Sammy Watkins, especially if Goff is playing the way he's playing. If he has a quarterback who can get him the ball consistently, he's got a guy who can run the ball and take the pressure off of him, with the play action and all that kind of stuff. You're looking at a guy who's a beast. And this guy, he has everything that you want in a wide receiver, and he's been impressive so far this year. So the only thing is his health is what is the major concern. So that was the one thing that where it would be like, do I want to deal with the health or do I want to just grab Tate, who's going to be a good player as well? But we don't know where he's going to land. He could end up in a similar situation. I don't know. He could end up in a bad situation. But I'm going to stick with Sammy Watkins and roll with him because I like him a lot, and I think he's in a good spot finally.
And what
weird to say about
you? I know it's a different situation now. Jeff Fisher's dumbass is out the league, and we got
should have happened a long time ago.
Oh my God. I mean, even though he was in the NFC West and I loved them losing, I still wanted him out the league, just because he's garbage, man. I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the way he coached his team. And then the all in on, I think it's what it's called, on Amazon. I watched it this year and he's just so stupid, dude. His speeches, the way he talks about things. Anyways, what's your take on this, Jason? Who are you taking here?
This is actually a tough one, man. I'm looking at Sammy Watkins and I'm thinking, I know that he's younger. He came into the league younger as well, and he's extremely athletic. I'm looking at the fact that where he is right now, they got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Todd Gurley. The way they're using that, I mean, Tavon Austin's nothing at this point, but, Goff is looking for a reliable target, and I think Watkins is going to be that. But I'm also looking at the fact that how many touchdowns is he going to get compared to Auden Tate, who could be your Mike Evans and Kelvin Benjamin, who's really not that good, but he scores touchdowns. I'm kind of looking at the touchdown guy, and it always depends on where they land. But, man, I kind of like Auden Tate here a little bit more.
I think if you're trading Watkins, you could probably get more than just Tate.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, so if you were, adding something on of value, I probably would agree.
Well, preseason, I mean, I think you're going to be able to get, let's rewind a little bit. For the 2017 class, if you were to trade Sammy Watkins, back during rookie drafts, you were going to be able to get a mid-round first or a mid-first rounder for him. I think, you could trade him off and get that mid-first rounder, or you could offer a mid-first rounder and get Sammy Watkins. Now it's different, and on Tate's in at 1.06, which he's got a possibility to go a lot higher than that. Mm-hmm. I think it's still a situation where Sammy Watkins, his freshman season is unmatched. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there that have had similar production, but he had over a 34, 36% dominator rating as a freshman at Clemson, and that's just absurd. I mean, I was looking at that class, and it was crazy. And Sammy Watkins, the talent that he is, Sean McVay in that offense for the Rams, they're going to have to extend him and keep him there, but I think I'm going to have to roll Sammy Watkins in this one as well. And I think on each of these that we're going to be discussing, you will be able to get more for that player versus the Devy player, and I think so we'll move on to the next one. And this is Ty Montgomery, who was 53rd overall in preseason ADP, or the 1.07 in the projected futures, Ronald Jones. So I'll let you talk on this one first, Jason. Who are you rolling with?
Yeah, this one kind of sucks because I don't like taking Packers because I like to root for my fantasy team. But I'm going to go with Ty Montgomery here. I think his versatility is super valuable as far as PPR leagues and standard leagues, where I don't know about Ronald Jones yet. Now, I'm just coming on to him. I'm just kind of getting used to the fact that, okay, he's improved. But I want to see it a little bit longer. I still have my concerns with him where I've seen what Ty Montgomery can do. He's in a high-powered offense. He's got Aaron Rodgers there to kind of help out, with the pass game out of the backfield. So for me, for a guy that I know is going to be productive already, and I've seen what he can do, I'm going with Ty Montgomery.
What about you, Cody? Your dude, Ronald Jones or Ty Montgomery?
So for this one, the only reason I'm going to agree with Jason is because of what he said, where he's at. With Aaron Rodgers, that's what everybody worries about. They throw a bunch of DBs out there to try to, cover all the wide receivers because they have a lot of wide receiver talent as well. And I think it opens up a lot for whoever is the running back there. And right now it's Ty Montgomery. So if he's there and he's the guy, which it sounds like they're going to, keep rolling with him and they don't have any plans of letting off of that, I'm taking him because we don't know. Ronald Jones could end up anywhere. And we just don't know. If it's a different guy that's not at such a good spot as Montgomery, I probably would go with Jones. But, man, it's tough to go away from a high-powered offense like that.
What if Jones becomes a Seahawk? Then they got like 19 running backs. So
then it's you got to
Chris Carson is the GOAT. He's the real deal. We're gonna see maybe 160 total yards and 2 touchdowns this week against the Colts. I'll be there.
I'd get you started talking about the Seahawks.
I'll be there. They're retiring Kenny Easley's jersey at halftime. It's gonna be pretty cool. Sunday Night Football. I'll be there.
Cody.
Anyways, me and my 2 buddies rolling over. It's gonna be a blast. I really, preseason we got these tickets. I wanted to go see us whoop up on Andrew Luck, but that's not gonna be the case. Now we gotta try to, contain Jacoby Brissett. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. So we'll see what goes on with that. I'm gonna go with Ty Montgomery as well. He just got to change that jersey number. He's in the backfield with Aaron Rodgers. He's the best running back on that team. I don't care about Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones. Ty Montgomery's the dude. I think he's someone that's going to get an extension with Green Bay, be there for quite some time. He's a good player, has the hands, the wide receiver background. I like Ty Montgomery here. And this next one's an interesting one. This is we're getting up there with the big boys now. And this is number 5 overall in startup ADP, which is Ezekiel Elliott. I'm sure the listeners already know who I'm going to say. The 1.01 in the projected futures, hailing from Penn State, Saquon Barkley. Cody, give it to us. What do you got here?
Go first.
Oh man, I want to say Zeke so bad just because the situation he's in, and he's good, but I'm going with Barkley, man. He is so good. It's insane every time I watch him. I'm still impressed by him. It's not like I'm not even used to it, and still, it's every time I see him play, he's so good. And I don't even care where he lands in the draft. I don't care if he's with the worst team, with a bad offensive line. I still think he's going to be productive. And if you give him any sort of offensive line, any sort of offense, you're looking at a guy who's going to be a stud, and you're looking at a perennial, RB1, maybe even a high-end RB1. So I'm taking Barkley, and I'm not looking back.
What about you, Jay?
I think he said it perfectly. I don't care where Barkley lands. Now, again, Ezekiel Elliott landing on the Dallas Cowboys was just the perfect storm, with that offensive line. But you know what? They're not going to have that offensive line forever. They can't pay everybody. So for me, Saquon can create his own space. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He can catch the ball as a route-running wide receiver. And for me, I don't care where he goes. It's Barkley all the way.
Okay, so the cool thing with Saquon Barkley, after this year, he's going to turn 21 in February. He's still young. We talked about it earlier, the work ethic, everything that goes along with it. There's one thing I can say for Saquon Barkley that Ezekiel Elliott isn't as elite at, and that's the pass catching. That's, we're in a situation where Saquon Barkley can do what David Johnson can do out of the backfield and be very productive at it. Not only being a guy that can get those checkdowns and, pick up those yards, but a guy that's running a wheel route and is able to adjust his body and show body control, reach out with natural hands, snatch the ball, and really do damage against, a linebacker, or even outmuscle a DB or whatever the case is. He has it. And Ezekiel Elliott, the troubles that's going on with him, it's not going to be resolved till I want to say probably next year. There's a still good chance that he's going to get suspended. You never know with the NFL. He's got the situation per PFF, they're actually falling off a little bit. Their offensive line, they got to make up for losing Ronald Leary, and they got homeboy Lael Collins on the right side, who's doing an okay job, but he's not necessarily the dominant player that we thought he was going to be coming out of the draft a couple years ago. That team as a whole, they might be on the downside. Ezekiel Elliott's looking a little chubby. Saquon Barkley, he's something else, man. And there's a scenario, where he could very well. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. No doubt in my mind.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And he could end up landing with the Browns because they do have a decent offensive line.
I would love that.
That's a situation where Deshaun Kaiser, he could, end up really blossoming into a big-time quarterback, and they might not have to draft a quarterback next year, and they could use their 2 picks, hopefully in the top 10, one on offensive tackle and one on Saquon Barkley, or if they want to go defense and Saquon Barkley, whatever the case is. I think that's a situation where he could end up with the Browns, and I like everything about him better. He's a better prospect for me than Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm thinking right now, though, it's a situation where if you have Ezekiel Elliott, you are not going to want to really part with him. But if you're not a contender, I wouldn't be opposed to doing this straight up. If you're in a Devy league trying to get Saquon Barkley, I would possibly do it straight up. I think Saquon, he might end up being, like a number 13, number 14 overall in terms of startup picks next year, because that's how good he is, and the hype is only going to get bigger. It's only going to continue to grow. So we're all on the same train here. Saquon Barkley did.
There's a crazy scenario where you are going to start next season without Ezekiel Elliott and with Barkley. So it's just kind of that off-field issue, not having that headache with a guy like Barkley, that's valuable too.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. And we got a little bit of time left, so let's get to these matchups. We'll let Cody pop off one of these. I know he's got 2 here, but I'm going to make him pick his favorite matchup, talk on that, and then we'll roll it.
All right, so I'll just go with Georgia versus Tennessee. I think that's going to be a decent matchup, but I think Georgia's going to win it. I'm excited to see Fromm. He really impressed me last week. I hate saying it because I like Eason so much, but I think Fromm just took this job from him, and I want to see what he could do with it. I also want to see John. I want to see John Kelly.
Wally pipped.
Yeah, I think, and
Can
I hate saying
Wally pipped.
Wally pipped. There you go. I also want to see John Kelly versus the Georgia defense. That Georgia defense has some playmakers on it, and I want to see if John Kelly can continue doing what he's been doing and just how productive he's been in all facets of the game. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, especially on a prospect type of level. But I'm excited to see Fromm for sure.
Go ahead.
It's a situation where you're going to see real life matchups, with John Kelly, like you said, against that Georgia defense, elite defenders against a guy who some might think is moving into that elite range in John Kelly. And it's just, it's going to be a great matchup. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we saw what they did to Notre Dame and stuffed them. And then the next week, Notre Dame goes out and has over 500 yards of rushing. So, yeah, I want to see what John Kelly can do for sure.
Well, Jason, let's let you talk about the next game, because mine's the game of the week. I got to save this one for last.
Yeah, we got to save yours for last. I get it. For me, it's South Carolina versus Texas A&M. We saw Brian Edwards become the number 1 guy with Deebo Samuel out. And, we all like Brian Edwards. And he's got the capability of being an X receiver at the next level, I believe. So I want to see how they use him, how productive he is, what his target share is going to be. And Jamon Osman, again, I that's a guy I'm absolutely infatuated with. I want to see him, keep that target share. He's averaging, I think, 9 targets a game, and I want to see if that continues. And Trevion Williams as well, man. I love watching that kid run. So I have that matchup, and I got one more real quick one: Auburn versus Mississippi State. Jared Stidham, man, I just want to see how he does against a defense like Mississippi State, and just see how poised he is and how he can handle the pass rush.
Dang, just sneaks in an extra game there.
I did. I did see how smooth that was too.
I cut Cody off, but Jason, I mean, maybe he feels a little slighted because I mentioned Cody first to start this episode off. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I always cheat.
Just edit that out.
He does cheat. He does cheat.
I
But
do. I'm a cheater.
We'll go to the game of the week. And one thing that frustrates me with this is there has never been a game day in Pullman. And there's not going to be this week because it's on a Friday night. I mean, come on. You know, the Apple Cup is on
That doesn't happen.
the day game after Thanksgiving. It's on freaking Friday after Thanksgiving. WSU. It's on a Friday. Like, there needs to be a scenario with Old Faithful, how WSU is always waving that flag at game day. And there's 2 scenarios this year where they could have a game day. This is definitely the one. This should be game day. 2 undefeated Pac-12 teams. WSU's got a very good chance of knocking off USC, but unfortunately it's on Friday. I was going to go to this game with a friend, need some money to make it to the Seahawks game on Sunday, so I sort of decided not to. But this is just, I mean, WSU's O-line versus USC's D-line, and I don't know. I don't think Porter Gustin's going to be back this week, who I'm really fond of as an edge defender for USC. And he went out in the Texas game, and there's not really been any word on his return. You know, Deontay Burnett's looking questionable for USC. And on the other side of the ball, you know, so it's a situation where WSU's defense has actually improved quite a bit. They did lose their signal caller, or their main dude in the middle of the field, their starting linebacker, which is a bummer. But their defense as a whole, you know, Hercules Mataafa is a beast inside. He's undersized, I guess you could say one tech based off of where he's playing all year, and he still wins that way. He's a guy who could win on the edge as well. But the offensive side of the ball, Luke Falk, I mean, James Williams, a running back, sophomore guy who Cody did a piece on when we did our underrated players, our sleepers back in June. That's the player that Cody profiled, and he's just a stud, man. The running back, he's great out of the backfield catching the ball. A lot of the times it's a little shovel pass, but he's just a stud, very productive. And I think Luke Falk's back, man. I think he's had 2 wonderful games. He's only thrown 1 interception on the season. You know, ended up getting benched in that Boise State game because it was precautionary to his injury. But he's back. They're in Pullman, dude. That place is rocking. That's a crazy place to play. It's a crazy place to watch football. It's fun out there in the Palouse, and it's man, dude, this game is going to be so much fun, dude. I cannot wait to watch it. I wish I had some extra bills to go over there because I know Thor Nike and our Thor Nystrom. Yeah, it's Thor Nystrom. I was thinking Nike because of his Thor Q handle.
I've done that.
Him and Mark Lindquist, both guys from Roto World, are going to be over there. And there was a situation where I was going to possibly make it as well, but I'm not. It's a bummer. That's one I wanted to watch up close and personal, see Sam Darnold in person, to, you know, not only enjoy the game, but to do some better evaluation on the situation. I mean, how do you guys feel about this, man? This is who do you think is going to take this one?
I think USC is going to take it, but a couple things I'm looking at. I want to see where those 15 targets from Deontay Burnett is going to go. You know, are we finally going to see some Joseph Lewis in there? And when it comes to Luke Falkman, 130 for 169. That 100. That's insane.
What's that? Crazy? What percentage is that?
I don't have that. But that's ridiculous. He's only not. What was that 39 passes he's missed out of 169? That's insane.
I'm looking it up right now.
He can do. Okay.
76.9%. 76.9% completion rate.
I agree. I think USC is going to win it, but James Williams, I agree with everything you just said. He's a stud. He's got like what is it? Of the receptions for their team out of the backfield, and I want to say that is the most like of any other player on their team. He's got, but I'd have to look that up. But he's just all around such a good player. I'm excited for that game as well. So
yeah, he's sitting at 37 receptions, 266 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. They don't run the ball too often. Jamal Morrow is the one that's leading it. But it's a situation where coming in this year, I just felt James Williams was going to be the dude. And he'll have that backfield pretty much to himself next year. Right now he's splitting it. But he's one of the top dogs in terms of college fantasy. And his overall skill set for the position, I mean, he's a shifty dude, but he also has some power. in his legs, and I just love his running style. So that's going to be an amazing matchup. Friday night, you guys be on the lookout. Set your DVRs, record this game, watch this game, sit down, kick back. It's just Pac-12 after dark, man. It gets
This
wild.
doesn't happen very often. I don't think this happens, does it? On a Friday night?
No, it's so stupid,
Nah.
dude.
Yeah.
It happens in the Pac-12.
ASU plays a lot of Thursday night games, but they suck, so nobody cares.
Well, that's going to do it for episode 14. You know, we hope we brought some solid information for the listeners out there and, you know, really give some insight on these players, what to look forward to, the WR Vet segment, whatever the case is. We're trying to bring information for the listeners to, you know, better inform you guys on who to look out for, who's the risers, who's the fallers, who's the studs, you know. And, you know, so it was another jam-packed episode. Like always, we go over, and that's fine. I mean, you want to listen all the way through and get as much info as you want. But we are a part of the Dynasty Football Network on dynastyfootballfactory.com. Go check out those handles at DF_network. You know, there's a ton of shows on there. Cody listed them off at the beginning of the episode, and, you know, keep tuning in. We got a bunch of Devy stuff dropping, Devy Weekly. You know, we got Cody's underclassmen to watch. We got my projected futures. We got this piece coming out here shortly. You know, you guys will be excited for it because it's going to be pretty much giving you the ins and outs of the top producers in college and the top ones to watch out for. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. Any last words?
I got to do one thing before we go. I made a promise. I got beat by my girlfriend this weekend in fantasy football. She decided to draft all Patriots, and they went off. So, and I had Travis Kelce and Amari Cooper, who were bums. So, good job, babe.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sucks. It happens. You know, Tom Brady just decided to go out for 5 touchdowns. I played against him in a few leagues. Own him in a few leagues. It is what it is. Keep tuning in each and every week, each and every Thursday. We got the Devy Watch dropping. So take it easy, guys. Enjoy the football games this week. Until next time, have a great one.
Peace.
Stop. I think that was one of our best episodes.
That was really good.
Are we still live? Don't do anything weird.
All right, I'm going to stop broadcast.